Guys, in today's video, we're going to be working on the Street Glide ST. Guys, my name is Rick and this is the HDVIBE channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be addressing one thing on this bike that just doesn't work for me and has to be changed out. And we'll get into it right after this. That's right, guys. I've had the Street Glide ST now for about 3 months. I'm actually getting ready to head out on a big trip. When this video releases, I'll actually be out on that trip and I'll be riding through Sturgis, the Black Hills, into Wyoming, Spearfish Canyon, Deadwood, all of these fantastic riding areas. So I'm really looking forward to that. But before I head out on this trip, there's one thing on the Street Glide ST, and it's the same issue I had on the Street Glide CVO, and that is this heavy breather. That's right, guys, this thing just does not work. Functionally, it works well for the engine. It looks really cool, but from a rideability standpoint, it just doesn't work. So if you're considering putting on one of these Harley heavy breathers, or you already have a bike that has a heavy breather, I would say try to avoid it and maybe go this route that I'm gonna go on the Street Glide ST instead. So let me show you what the real problem is. So here's the problem. As you can see, when I'm riding, this is fine. I have my foot nicely planted on the floorboard, but the problem becomes when I go to try to get the brake. As you can see, my shin is hitting this snorkel that comes up on here, and I'm not a real tall guy. I'm about 5'10". My inseam's about 31.5, 32. Especially in heavy traffic, when you're going back and forth between brake and no brake, I actually get a bruise on my shin right here from this heavy breather. The only other option I have is to kind of contort my leg around and maybe get the outside of that brake pedal. But for me, it just doesn't feel safe, and I'm always afraid that my boot or my shoe that I'm riding, my riding boot, will slip off. And so I try to get in here, but what I do find is I kind of pull my leg out away from the bike, which upsets sort of the balance or the center of balance of the bike, and it's just not safe. So in my mind, I would not suggest going to these heavy breathers that Harley offers as aftermarket or that come on these ST models, whether it be a Road Glide or Street Glide, or the CVOs up to 2022 on the Street Glide and the Road Glides. To address the issue I have with the heavy breather with that snorkel, I'm actually going to install this Screaming Eagle. This is a Ventilator Extreme kit. So it comes in a couple of different pieces. You can get the kit that actually has the backing plate as well as the actual breather element itself, which is a K&N filter that's oilable, and it's thicker than the normal Ventilator kit, thus the name Ventilator Extreme. And then you do have to buy this separate bracket to cover it and hold it onto the bike. And then I would also suggest getting a nice solid rain sock, because this thing is pretty wide open. As you can see from this photo, you got a lot of area where this is exposed to the elements, and if you get caught in rain, you're going to probably be sucking some water into that engine, which is not a great situation. So I will have links and descriptions of all these parts that you will actually need. So if you are starting out with this heavy breather style with the snorkel, there are 2 other parts you need, and that's really the breather bolts, and I'll also have those part numbers down in the description as well. So without any further ado, let's get this old breather off and install this new one so that I have a more comfortable ride, and you will too. Okay, so to begin to remove this heavy breather, the first thing we need to do is basically remove this breather portion with this snorkel. And there's 3 hex bolts here, Allen bolts here, that are actually 3/16. So I'll just remove those, and then I'll be able to take this snorkel portion off. And I'll just finish removing this last 3/16 Allen bolt out, and that allows me to remove this snorkel breather. Gotten that snorkel breather off there. Now we need to remove this bolt and this bolt, and that is a Torx 40. And now I'll remove the second bolt here. And now the second bolt comes out. Okay, so now that I've got the 2 breather bolts out, Now I need to take out these 3 bolts here that actually hold this onto the breather housing behind it. And that is a 5/32 Allen, so I'll go ahead and get those out. And then this should then come right off of there. Loosening up the final bolt here. And this is beginning to come loose. We got these all the way out. And that reveals the intake manifold. Now at this point, we're actually ready to go ahead and install the new Ventilator Extreme kit on here. Now we're ready to actually put, this is really just a stock ventilator backing plate for the ventilator breather. So if you get the kit that I'll have links down in the description, you get all of this included. I was fortunate, I actually scored this at my local Harley Davidson dealership. A lot of times they have takeoff parts that they'll either really sell to you for really inexpensive, or in my case, since I have a good relationship with them, they actually just gave me this backing plate, the screws, and some of the breather things that go with it. So I scored that, so I just had to get part of the kit, and I'll show you the individual components of that as well. So if you have the kit, you're going to want to make sure you apply this gasket on the back, or if you get this in the aftermarket, make sure you have this gasket and it's in good shape. And then basically you're just going to flip this around, and you can see the 3 screw areas here will line up with this. So you just line that up and then put your 3 bolts in there. I would suggest putting a little bit of Loctite on that so it doesn't vibrate loose. And then I'll just put those in. So I started with these top 2 bolts, put those in first, kind of got them loose, hand tight. And then it'll give me a little play here to get this bottom one lined up properly. Now I'm just going to actually just slightly hand tighten these so that I can still get these 2 breather bolts in over here. These are the breather bolts that you would have to buy separately. And I'll actually list the part number right here, but it's also noted in the kit if you do buy that. If you do have the heavy breather to start out with on the ST or the CVO, it'll show you which part number, but I'll list that here as well as in the description. So again, I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on these, and that's just going to go right in here, one on either side. So as you'll see on these breather bolts, there's actually a socket. You tighten this with a socket. It's like a bolt. So you'll actually need a 7/16 socket to go ahead and tighten that up. So I'm going to get this one in, and then we'll repeat that on the other side. And then this should be pretty much ready then to tighten everything down. And then I'll show you the next step. So I've got both the breather bolts in now, and I'm going to go ahead and just tighten those down. And there actually is the torque spec for those, which I will not say here because I'll probably say it wrong, but just check the directions for the actual torque spec for this. And then I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down now that this plate is on there nice and solid. So I'll tighten these down, and then we're ready for the breather hoses to go on. Now we're ready to install these 2 breather hoses. So these will actually go onto the 2 breather bolts that we put in here. And what that does is allows for any blow-by coming from the engine in terms of oil to be routed back into here. And when this is open, it goes back in the engine and burns that. So a lot of people don't like that, so they may put some bypasses on these to actually get a catch can to catch that extra oil coming out so it's not burning through the engine. I did see a little bit of blow-by on the other breather that I took out, and I have about 2,000 plus miles on the bike now. So a little bit of blow-by, but not terrible. And it's already been through its 1,000 mile service, so oil has been changed and topped off. So let me go ahead and put these on. And essentially what they do is you'll see there's a hole here, and there's a little tab here. So the long one goes on the left side here, just pushes on, and then slides over that tab. The short one goes on the right side. The tab's down here, push it in, push that over the tab to hold it steady, just make sure they're pushed in. And essentially that is it for this portion of the backing plate and the breather. Now we're ready to put the breather element itself onto here. But before we do that, I want to show you the difference between the one I'm putting on, which is the Extreme Ventilator, and the one that is stock on your 114 standard ventilator. So this is a stock, I believe this came off a 114. This is with the takeoff kit that I got from Harley Davidson. And then this is the Ventilator Extreme. So as you can see, much thicker. I think it's probably at least a ½ an inch thicker than this one in terms of from here to here. Then obviously on the front, this is all open, so you get more air coming in there versus the stock one, which is all closed off. So obviously you have much more surface area that the engine can receive air from, so much better flow coming into the bike. So now we've got the backing plate, and I've installed the actual K&N filter that is made for Harley Davidson for these motorcycles. It just kind of pushes in, it'll stay in place. It's got this rubber seal kind of around it, so it just kind of pushes in and pops in. But now we need to put the actual cover on it. All right, so what you get in the kit is you actually get the cover. There's 4 bolts here that actually go through here to hold it together. Then you have 2 of these brackets that go in the back to actually hold this onto, this cover onto that air cleaner. Before I actually bolt these brackets to the front of the cover, I'm going to show you how these go on here. There's a little space here, and then on the bottom there's not a gap, but essentially what you want to do is have these threads showing out and just kind of slide that into position over that slot, and then you'll do the same on the bottom with this under there. And once you get that lined up, you can see they're in good position there. And then what I'll do is I'll just put the breather element right on there, and then the cover, and then we'll bolt that up, and then this should be wrapped up. Now I'm just putting in the last bolt here, get it hand started. And then when you go ahead and tighten this up, you're going to kind of do it in a cross pattern, so kind of tighten this one, this one, this one, this one, and do that in an even amount of pressure so that this doesn't kind of get cocked or offset. And then what you want to do, there is a torque spec on these, and it is 55 to 60 inch-pound on these for the torque spec. So I'll go ahead and get those torqued down. Again, I did put blue Loctite on all those, and then we'll just get that tightened up, and then we should be set. We've got it on here, so now as you can see, I can freely get my leg up to the brake and not have any issues in terms of hitting my shin again on that snorkel coming out of there. This is just slightly rubbing up against my calf. But to me, this is a much safer and a much more rideable option than that heavy breather. Again, I'm not that tall of a guy, so I can't even imagine if you were 5'11", 6 foot, over 6 foot, you'd be constantly banging your shin or having to really lay your leg out, get your heel around to get to that brake without hitting your shin. So for me, I would say this is a great option. And for most of you out there, I would say probably a great option as well. So guys, pretty simple change out. This makes the bike much more rideable from my perspective, and it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of time. Again, like I said, 15 to maybe 30 minutes tops. A few simple tools. You need some Allens, you need some sockets. Ideally, you'd have a 12-point socket for those bolts that hold on the cover. But if you don't have that, I just use a regular socket and just was real careful so I didn't strip those out. Don't throw this out. You keep this, you clean it, and then you oil it with the K&N Filter oil. So whenever you have your maintenance, make sure to remind your Harley Davidson dealership or wherever you have your service done to make sure they clean it and then re-oil it, or you can do it yourself, get some of the oil, clean it off from time to time, because what will happen is it will go from that pinkish color, which is the oil causing that, and as that dries out, that filter will become more gray or almost white or even turn black as it gets dirty. So that's really an indication as to when you need to clean it up and re-oil it. Guys, if you like this type of content, please give it a thumbs up. Also consider sharing this with your friends. Again, I have over 170 videos on tips, tricks, rides, reviews, and installs on my Harley Davidson touring motorcycles. Also, if you watch my videos and haven't subscribed, or this is your first time here, I'd ask that you please consider subscribing to the channel. And when you do subscribe, please leave a comment down below saying I subscribe so I can personally reach out and thank you for supporting the channel. Also, leave some comments down below. Have you had the same issue with that heavy breather, that big snorkel hitting your leg, or does it not really bother you? I've had 2 bikes now and I've had to change this out. Also, if you have this extreme ventilator on your bike already, let me know how it works out for you. I think this is going to be great. And with that, guys, I want to leave you with this thought. Life is short. Get out and ride the bike. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.